Somebody is really, okay. I think I got that feedback taken care of.
It's 1 o'clock.
Okay, so it is 1 o'clock, and I always like to get started on time. And if you're not going to be contributing a question or a comment, which I appreciate that you do, can you at least try to mute yourself so that we don't get feedback from everybody else? I see that most everyone is muted. And I'm going to make Jay a host. I can find him in the make host. So Jay, I got you on, but it looks like you're muted. So
Yeah, I'm here.
okay. So today, last couple weeks, we've had this 1 hour, 1 o'clock call, and we've talked about features of the program, and certainly we will talk about some features today. But I wanted to sort of bring a different angle, and so I wanted to bring Jay Owen, and I'll give you a little bit of a history that I have with Jay, and then I'll let him tell his story. And then I want to really open it up for any kind of questions that you guys may have. He's written a book, and he can talk about that. It's called Building a Business That Lasts. And I think that the subcaption is Without Sacrificing Your Family. And so Jay can tell you about himself and his family. And but I met Jay. I was actually a contractor. Some of you know for many years, and I had come up with the idea of having this spreadsheet, and we took it to. I actually met someone in a business networking international group, and she ended up meeting Jay. Christine is my business partner, and she ended up meeting Jay in another BNI at a multi event that we had. And we talked about, the three of us, about taking this product, which was originally a spreadsheet, and building it into a software program. And interestingly enough, Jay didn't build software, he only built websites. And so we ended up making it into a website. And what's funny is, at the time, when we would go around to talk to contractors about it, and we're talking 2008, 2009, people would say, man, no one's ever going to use anything on the web or purchase anything like that. No one's ever going to do that. So you might as well just keep it a spreadsheet and make it into a software program. And maybe we'd buy it. I even had a guy down in Miami say, look, man, if you could send it to me in a box, I'll buy it. But if I can't get it in a box, I'm not buying it. So I wanted Jay to talk a little bit about sort of his journey and what we're doing with the program. We're going to eventually talk about the lead section. He's been doing a lot of investigation on the PPP program. And for some of you that may be out there struggling with business right now, if you have questions about that, he's done a lot of investigation and can answer a lot of questions about that. He's not an accountant, not an attorney, but he definitely is an authority on many of these topics. So Jay, why don't you take it over? Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and about your organization.
Yeah, sure. Dwayne, thanks. First of all, everybody that's here today, I'm glad you're here. I appreciate you being here. And, I think one of the things I always like to start off with is a reminder, both from Dwayne and I and all of us who work on this application. Our greatest desire is for you guys to see success and continued growth. Many of you have years of success and growth under your belts already, and we want to be a tool, a service, a resource, and people that can help amplify that. That's what I'm all about from a services standpoint with the work that I do. Marketing can be confusing and expensive. Finding the right technical tools and strategies for your business can be overwhelming. And my job at the agency that I run, which is called Design Extensions, is to help companies ultimately grow their business. And so HVACBizPro fits perfectly alongside that because it's a tool that ultimately is going to help you grow. So that's kind of what our focus is. I have been doing this work my whole life. I built my first website when I was 12, And I started the business that I run today when I was 17. That was 21 years ago. We've grown every single year, top and bottom line, for 21 years in a row. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let this virus make this year be the year that's not true. So we're doing everything we can to keep growing in the midst of all this craziness right now. And so what Dwayne and I want to do today was just kind of open it up a little bit and give you all a chance to, we could talk about the program. We could talk about the leads piece of the program that we're working on that exists now, but we're going to be kind of building it out some more as well. If you want to talk about more business growth strategies and tips right now, especially with some of the SBA loan programs that Dwayne mentioned, both the PPP program and the EIDL, which are loan programs you can get, many of which are forgivable. If you're not familiar with that, you need to be. There's some huge opportunity out there to help protect your business in this season. That the government, the federal government, to my knowledge, has never done anything like this, at least not in my 21 years of business, to help support small businesses. So I'm really excited about that. As far as the actual application goes, and my experience there, I've been building web apps pretty much my whole life as well. BizPro is definitely the largest, most successful application that we've built. And that's a big, mostly attributed to Dwayne's hard work out there in the field to connect with y'all and show up at events and grow and spread the word about it. It's crazy to think about how much it's changed over the years. I mean, when we first sat down and built this thing literally in my garage office at the time, it was a proposal program, and it was still great. It was way better than a spreadsheet. It was way better than anything else that existed out there. But now the intent and the vision behind the program is really helping you grow your business as a whole. And especially in this season, there has never been a more important time for you to know your numbers and to know what numbers matter the most and how to track those numbers. So that's going to be kind of our focus of conversation today, is just tips around how you can use this program to grow your business. Or if you have other marketing and strategy tips you want to talk through, I'm happy to talk about that too. Like I said, we help companies all over the country clarify their message and grow their businesses. So I'm happy to give you whatever knowledge I have. If you have questions on social media or search engine optimization or paid ads or lead generation, as it relates to the program or not, I'm happy to help with that. Dwayne is happy to let the conversation go wherever it's most helpful to those of you that are here today. So that's a kind of an intro of who I am and why I'm here. Dwayne, anything else on that? You're muted. Oh, there you go.
Okay, so I appreciate you talking about that. And your organization is in St. Augustine, Florida. Matter of fact, it's very convenient for me because you're about 5 minutes away. I can pop down there. It's probably not convenient for you for me to be that close. But I actually consider his office, my office. And
I am drinking one of your Coke Zeros today. Just
yeah, there you go. Right.
Dwayne's one of the only people. Actually, he is the only person outside of the people in our team who our office admin always stocks his favorite drink, which, if you wanted to know, during the day anyway, is Coke Zero.
Yeah. So he's got a very, very fun organization. It makes they're fun to do business with. You actually work with a few AC companies across the country. You've worked with some distributors. You've built some programs for some distributors that are. Maybe you could talk about that a little bit, about the wealth and strength of your capability.
Yeah, I mean, people often ask if we work in a particular industry or not. And what I always tell people is everybody's selling something. It's just a matter of what. And our job is to help understand that story and invite their customer into that story so that they get attention, acquire customers, and grow their business. So certainly there's been a lot of work that we've done within the HVAC vertical, primarily because of Dwayne and the HVACBizPro product, because we have a lot of connections as a result of that. I've got companies we've worked with all over the country. We've got an AC company out in California, one up in South Dakota, some locally, just people all over the place. We also just recently have redone a lot of work for Mingledorff's, which some of you are familiar with, a distributor here in the Southeast. And we have rebuilt their entire internal intranet system that's about to go live. We rebuilt their entire employee engagement application to help track goals for each one of their internal employees. It's an internal application. And we rebuilt their front end website, mingledorffs.com. So that kind of gives you an idea of the breadth of work that we do to help support companies all over the country to ultimately grow their businesses.
So I guess what I'd like to do is answer any questions or take any, while we've got Jay available for an hour, what things are you struggling with? What things do you think you need? It can be anything from your business to the program to, marketing, advertising. Were you wondering about something that maybe your agency's telling you and you're not sure if it's true or not? But he pretty much can answer anything that we have available right here. So
yeah, if you have any questions, because there's quite a few people on the call, and you want to just kind of get in the loop here, there's a chat button at the bottom down there of your Zoom window. Hit that chat button and just maybe type your question into the chat box there. That way we can kind of recognize you, and then if you're okay with it, we'll just bring you on audio and maybe audio and video, and we can kind of get you in the queue that way. So Dwayne, we got one there from Gus.
Gus, so let me minimize this and then find Gus.
He's unmuted, so he's good to
Yeah,
go.
go ahead, Gus. How you doing,
Hey,
man?
how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's always good to talk to you.
Yeah, man. Same here. Likewise. I just had a question. Like, how would you recommend to, kind of market and advertise your business going past this? So basically right now we're kind of running as a, emergency calls only. We're not really pushing anything else until, some of the restrictions are lifted. We don't want to like pressure anyone in that sense, but I'd like to start preparing for the warmer months. I'm here in South Jersey, so it's April. It's not too warm yet, but it's going to start creeping up on us.
Yeah, how are you guys doing up there? I know Jersey in general has been hit pretty hard.
We're holding our own. It's not horrible in the town I live in. It's all around me though, so we're taking precautions with that. Work wise, it's dribs and drabs for emergency work here and there. So we're holding our heads high, hoping this passes by.
Yeah, Dwayne and I have been somewhat fortunate where we live. St. Johns County is a pretty large county in Florida here, and I think there's a total of like 150, maybe 160 total cases down here. So we're pretty fortunate. It's really not very widespread.
Right.
And let me answer your question. Talking about marketing, especially marketing coming out of this, and how do we grow our businesses coming out of this? That was kind of the question. A couple things I think matter a lot here. Number one, I really still believe that our economy will accelerate out of this very quickly. Now we got to see light at the end of the tunnel, and there's going to be some ongoing issues with this whole virus thing and the possibility of spreading into the fall and things like that. But I think that the economy as a whole is going to be in a different position than we were previously in like, for example, 9/11 or the housing crisis, more specifically in 2008, 2009, that whole season. That season specifically is going to be a lot worse for the should have been a lot worse for HVAC industry than I think this will be. It's complicated right now because we can't get in homes, you can't do things like that. But coming out of this, it's going to accelerate more quickly simply because our economy coming into this crisis was very strong. So a business like mine, for example, I have 18 team members here in St. Augustine, plus tons of contractors all over the world that we use for specialization services. And when this whole crisis hit, I went into kind of protection mode. Okay. Now here's the reason I'm telling you this story, because I'm positioning myself essentially as the customer in the story, not as the HVAC contractor. So I'm a customer who has an has air conditioning and heating at my home, and I need those things to work. I got 5 kids at home. The wife homeschools. Air conditioners got to work in Florida. That's just the bottom line. And we're coming up on like, it must work, or like you're going to have to move north season in Florida. So, right now I might not want to have a lot of people in my house, but I'll tell you what, even if my air conditioner broke, I'd probably still have somebody in there. But going back to the money side of things, this is what really matters: is would I buy a new unit, or am I going to pay for a repair? Am I just going to wait? When this whole crisis happened, I went into protection mode as a company. And so I stopped spending anything extra and went into protection mode personally, which I think a lot of people have done. They're kind of going, oh, hold on. I want to make sure I got food on the table. I want to make sure I got a roof over my head. And ideally, I'd like to keep my whole team employed if I possibly can. But other than that, I'm going to kind of hold off on any other spending. But then here's what's happened for us. We just got approved for this payroll protection program that I was talking about earlier from the SBA, which is part of this big CARES Act that came out from the government. Well, what that basically means is they're going to pay my payroll, which is the biggest lump of what we do, for the next 2 months. They're going to give me money to pay that. And then assuming I use it to pay those people and keep those people employed, they're going to forgive that loan, which is pretty crazy. That's never happened before. And you can imagine, paying 20 people over 2 months gets relatively expensive. And so they're going to forgive that loan. Well, what that's done for me now from a strategy perspective is I'm going back into growth mode. So to answer your question about what needs to happen to grow out of this season, this is the time when companies need to look at and evaluate their core marketing materials that they never had time to get to before. So, what does your messaging on your website say, for example? And we can talk about that specifically. Websites, in the top fold of your website, so before you scroll down, it should answer 3 questions. What do you offer? How's it going to make my life better? And how do I buy it? That's it. And the focus of the messaging that you have about your business should be about your customer, not about you. The biggest mistake I see with most HVAC websites, I'll give you 2 of them. One, they all like to link out to their social media accounts because they're proud that they have a Facebook page or something. You shouldn't do that. Social media should be one-way traffic. It should come from Facebook to your website. Your website should not send people to your Facebook page. The second biggest mistake that HVAC contractors make on their websites is they want to talk about themselves the whole time. They want to talk about how long they've been in business. They want to talk about, how great they are, what awards they've won. Those things still matter, but they only matter after we've established what the problem is that we're solving for the customer. So this is the season right now when there's not as much work that can be done because of these government restrictions and social distancing and everything else. We need to look back at your messaging and ask, is it focused on the customer? Have I positioned myself as the guide to help solve that customer's problem? Number 2, it's a great time to redo things that maybe have been sitting on that back burner list, like maybe your website needs to be brought into 2020 from an appearance standpoint and from a messaging standpoint. Maybe some of the other collateral that you send out, maybe flyers that you leave behind or, brochures that you have, maybe it's a time those things need to be updated because we're kind of getting this reset opportunity. And when the economy turns, I think it's going to turn fast. And the people who have prepared themselves during this season and used this time well versus sitting around staring at my QuickBooks screen, scared as to whether or not I'm going to have enough money to pay people next week or not. I'm instead focusing on reinvesting in my business so that I can grow. So if you haven't looked at that payroll protection program or the EIDL through the SBA, those are things that I would highly recommend. And in fact, I actually have a webinar I can put in the chat. I'll link to it for anybody who's interested about those programs. I'll have to go find the link real quick, but I'll find it. That I did last week, I think. And I kind of talk through those programs in about 15 or 20 minutes. So if you haven't done that yet, you really need to look at those programs because they can provide you a lot of money from the government, which I'm not a big fan of usually, but I'm telling you, they're going to ask for it back in taxes at some point. So I might as well take it now so that I can protect my team, protect my company, and ultimately protect my clients and help people keep growing. So I'll put a link to that in the chat. Gus, I realize that was an exceptionally long answer to your question. Did you get anything out of that at all?
Yeah, I definitely did. Yeah, that was helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you.
So Jay, let me just follow up to that and ask you, you obviously know more about HVAC today than you did 11 years ago, and probably way more than you want to know. But if you were looking at the situation we were in, try to think back to when you didn't know anything about HVAC, what would appeal to you as just a general homeowner? Like what message would you want to see a company was doing, something they were planning, something they would offer?
Yeah.
Maybe because at some point you realize that, so Gus, if you've got all these people that won't let you come in their house, we're going to have this pent-up demand, and this pent-up demand is going to hit, and then you're not going to be able to get it all at one time. So you probably need to be staffed appropriately. So to talk about what Jay said about having the right number of people, you want to keep those people, but then when it comes time to be able to, as I'm rolling down the the Google search page on what I'm doing, who am I going to choose? Jay, what kind of a company would you look for? What would their message to you be that you would make you choose them?
One thing that's really important, and I've actually seen a lot of people in the HVAC business do this, is you guys and gals tend to use a lot of insider language. Use it on your marketing collateral, you use it on websites, and we've even talked about this as it relates to proposals, because I think there's too much insider language on those too. Something we've got some kind of vision and ideas for in the future. But basically, even before I was in HVAC, I couldn't tell you what HVAC even was necessarily. Maybe I knew it was what it was, but just use plain words like your air conditioning needs to work, your heater needs to work. I don't know about all of the 5-star Carrier awards that you got, or the Linux awards that you got, or all these other like insider words, languages. I don't know the difference between, or didn't. I probably know more now than I ever have. This kind of filter and that kind of filter. So when you start using like, we only install filters with this particular rating, I don't even know what that means. And so it's better to focus on what you're actually going to provide for the customer versus the technical words behind it. So anywhere on your website or marketing materials where you are using terminology that you only would know if you're inside of the HVAC business, you need to get rid of those words and you need to replace it with stuff that's more common language, like, this is going to help you breathe better at home. Well, maybe what you mean is that it's going to have a better filter rating, or it's going to have some whatever. We're going to eliminate, bacteria or whatever from your environment. Maybe what you mean by that is you're going to install some kind of a UV light or something. So don't use technical terms when you're describing things, and focus on what I want as the customer, and ultimately use words like, you deserve to have heating that works. You deserve to have air conditioning that works. When you change your wording to things like that, and it focuses on me as the customer and not you as the HVAC contractor, it's always going to be more appealing. People are always going to be more likely to buy it. And then also, I think, having quicker ways for people to get access to stuff. Dwayne and I are working on something, a new project that's going to be pretty interesting. That's going to allow quicker access in some areas where, like I'll give you an example. Today, I got a little bit of an earache brewing right now, and it's starting to bother me pretty good, and it's deep down in my ear, so I'm pretty sure I have an ear infection. But the last place I want to be right now is the doctor's office. So, I have a little service through my health insurance called Teledoc. Hit a button. 5 minutes later, I'm talking to a doctor on a video. I'm explaining things. He's written me a script and gotten things in. That's that doctor using technology in a way that hasn't been used before. Well, guess what? My copay is going to him now and not to my primary physician, because they don't provide that service. So how can technology be used within the HVAC business to leverage those kind of things? Now is the time that stuff has to happen. Even something as simple as live chat. If you don't have live chat on your website, that's a missed opportunity, especially as a relatively younger person. I'm almost 40, so I'm about to cross that line. But even still, I'm technically a very old millennial, or somewhere in between there. Everybody younger than me does not want to pick up a phone and call you. They don't. They want to hit a live chat button and go, hey, my air conditioner's not working. And then they want to figure out what the next step is. And so what if there was some kind of way to get into those people's homes and use technology, use video chat, use systems like that? That's some of the direction of where we're going, and where I think everybody needs to, where your head needs to be. The old way of doing things, especially coming out of this virus catastrophe, is not going to work anymore. The people who are focused on the new edge technology, those are the people who are going to win business and be able to acquire more business, because they're not wasting time on nuisance calls and on things that aren't actually generating any profit, which at the end of the day is what keeps businesses running. So that's a long answer too. I'm in long answer mode today.
You're doing great. I really appreciate it. Good stuff. All right. So any other questions? We've only been about 25 minutes, and surely you guys have a question, gals, comment. I know Bill.
If you have questions, put it in the chat down there. There's a chat button at the bottom of the Zoom. Click that chat button, type, I've got a question. or just turn your mute off and start talking. That's fine too. There's not too many people on this call. We can handle that.
Bill
we can talk
Dugan
about
always has something to say.
we can talk about marketing. We can talk about the actual application. We can jump into BizPro and start, looking at stuff if we want to. We can answer questions about why we do things a certain way or why we don't. You can tell us all the features that you wish that it had that we'll add to our list, all that kind of stuff.
I have another question if no one else is inclined to chat.
Sure.
I seen something, I forget when I was last on, that there was you guys were rolling out the text feature for text messages. Is there going to be a way that you can fully communicate through that at some point, maybe?
You mean like being able to text back and forth with the customer, almost like a messaging platform?
Yeah, almost. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that'd be a good way to put it.
We don't have that in the works right now, but I do like that idea. That'd be pretty neat if there was like a message section within the customer profile where you could message the customer back and forth. We're not doing that right now, Dwayne, are we?
No, because we're using Twilio, it's a one account, so we do the sub account. It doesn't allow us to break out the text for each individual.
Oh, right, because it's a notification. It won't allow us to do returns right now, right?
Right.
Gotcha.
That's why we could actually build that out at some point in the future, but there's some issues involved around that from a technical standpoint. Right now, the texting integration is really designed to alert the customer because they're more likely, all of us are more likely to look at a text message that comes in on our phone. We look at 100% of those, right? Whether we take action or not is a different thing. But if somebody sends me an email with an updated proposal or a reminder that I've got a service call tomorrow or whatever else, it gets buried in 200 other emails. Or if you're in Dwayne's inbox, it's like 40,000 other emails. So it gets buried in 200 other emails. I might not even see that before the service person even gets there. Or if I get a text message that says, hey, a service person's on the way, or the service person will be there tomorrow, whatever it is, I'm more likely to see that. Same thing with a proposal. If I get a text message that says, hey, here's the proposal that we talked about, it's going to spur more immediate action. So right now it's designed to be one-way communication from HVACBizPro to the customer. But we could consider that kind of direct back and forth communication in the future, but it's not there yet. It would be kind of similar to us almost building in an email platform, which we haven't chosen to do that either. We kind of prefer those things to be left where they're best suited to some extent.
Gus, one of the things that we're going to do, it was actually my intention in the beginning, I'm not sure how we missed it, but the way that it works is the text goes, if you make an appointment, the text goes to the customer confirming the appointment, and then the text goes the evening before, and then the morning of, and then there's an on my way notification to the customer that the technician is leaving to go to their house. I put it back on the list, things for us to accomplish, because here's what we missed. What I want to do is make it where the proposal and the service ticket itself is linked to a text, and not really any other reason than to try to catch people that are maybe using their phone to do business, their commerce. But we seem to have this problem, and man, it's a moving target. So what I'm talking about is email. We can be completely whitelisted on every server in America, and then all of a sudden one day, I don't know, some old grandma in Washington State says, hey, this was spam, and then the whole network goes to spam, and we have to go and go get whitelisted from everybody else. And so one thing that I know that text won't do, a text doesn't have like this was spam, do you want me to hold it up? So what I would like for it to do is to email and to text, so that way we can at least prove to the customer that they received it, and they can't say, well, we didn't get it.
Yeah.
Because I know that I get the emails very, very regularly. Hey man, for whatever reason, I can't send this email, it won't go out. But we know it went out, it just went into spam.
Yeah. It just seems like a lot of people like to communicate via, like what Jay was saying, with whether it's text message, Facebook Messenger. Our business Facebook Messenger has been, some people, like, they'll send me a message 10, 11 o'clock at night. Hey, can you take a look at this? And then, I try to respond back as fast as humanly possible, depending on obviously the time. And there's times where they'll go back and forth with me via Messenger and not even place a phone call. Everything will be done via Messenger.
Yeah, absolutely. There's more and more of that happening right now. And I think, my general opinion on it with regards to integrating that fully into BizPro is just that those messaging platforms are changing so rapidly right now. And they're ideally suited to do that job, which is handle direct messages from those customers. It's better to store the link to that information or the connection to the customer and then let that messaging platform handle it, because, 6 months from now, it might be WhatsApp that's the primary thing and not Facebook Messenger, or it might be, Instagram direct messages, or it might be, there's so many different ways, and it also varies a lot by region. And it also varies a lot by demographics of your customers. So if your customers skew a particular age range in your area, that can greatly affect which platform they're using. So, the problem is we pick one thing like texting or Facebook or WhatsApp or whatever else and start integrating that. Then we got 5 others who want 5 different platforms. So I think that using text messaging is helping us, like Dwayne said, ensure deliverability and make sure people are getting it. Provides one more angle for them to get connected, but it's not, we're not having to deal with the direct communication right now. I think that's best for now, but we'll definitely keep it on the radar.
So what are you saying? You're not following me on my MySpace account anymore?
Come on, Dwayne, we're Facebook friends.
That's scary. Dwayne, Amy had a question in the chat down there. You see that? We want to answer that one?
Yep. So Amy, up in the top can you see my screen, or are we just on?
We see your face.
Click share again to see your screen.
Yeah, I can see you.
Okay.
Click share. You can show off your screen to her.
Let me share my screen. And we're going to go up to the top. Let me get rid of this. And right here where it says help, you see the help? There's a couple of resources here. When you click help, it's going to take you to all these articles that I've written on the program. There's 11 articles on how to get started. There's 59 articles on navigating the system. And you can keyword search it. So like if you were working in the dispatch area and you wanted to find a way to include a Google review link, just type in a keyword. So type in Google, and here's a article that I've written on inserting a Google review link. And if you'll just read this article, sometimes there's a link, sometimes there's a video, sometimes, there's different things. And if you'll just let me know how we did on that. But if you go back to help.hvacbizpro.com, let me go back to that. help.hvacbizpro.com, or inside the program, it actually is the help button. And then on this first, all collections, getting started step by step, and it includes the defaults area. Okay, so all of these, setting up your company defaults, the pricing model, and I promise you each one of these is no more than about 10 or 15 minutes long. In some cases, only 5 minutes long. Now, there's another resource that we have where you go to welcome and then your name, and you have to be in the admin, okay? And you go to library. And so Jay, just while we're here, I'd like to be able to make this where it was a little more, instead of it just being a list of things, how could we make this look better?
Well, there's a lot of things we could do. We can categorize it. We can look at that.
Okay, so Amy, right? If you click on, if you click on the company default product tour right here, it will take you through a step-by-step And then it takes you through 36 steps of how to set up your company defaults. So it will take you right through, and it will explain. So we provided 2 or 3 different ways for you to learn. One is by this step by step, or you can go to the video that is on our YouTube channel. We have a YouTube channel. It's Enterprise Selling Solutions. So if I were to go to, and then I were to go to Enterprise you'll see this is our site, and there's a lot of videos here. So click on videos, and then you can just look down through here. Some of these are very short videos. Some of them are longer. You can search. So updating your company defaults, you can watch this one. Setting your load calc defaults, setting your appointment defaults, and really all these videos tie back to this right here. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Okay, great, awesome.
Amy, I saw in the chat you said you're still busy up there in South Carolina. I'm glad to hear that. That's really really good news. I love to hear when people are still
We've
getting
actually hired a couple people to do more service work.
I love it. That's great
Yep.
news.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, I think y'all in the HVAC business are, uniquely shielded from this because I think, I mean, maybe not in the moment. Like I know some of y'all are probably dealing with some very tough days at the moment, but once we get out of this, the reality is there's a couple of things people care about the absolute most. Food on the table is number one. Shelter is probably number two, but even that's kind of being furloughed because people are not having to. People can't be foreclosed on right now, things like that. So they're going to be in their homes. And number three is comfort while they're in those homes, especially if they're in their homes more. So, I think there's actually some unique advantages to being in the HVAC business right now as we come out of this crisis versus a lot of other businesses that may take a little bit longer to recover. Dwayne, there was another message here in the chat from Thomas. He said, will there be a feature that lets us know the customer has viewed the estimate?
So that really would be a new feature question. Do we have a way through SendGrid? And I don't actually really know the answer to that. I know that we can report back whether the email was delivered to the server, but I think what he's talking about is in the proposal area above the proposal that we usually say email delivered or unable to email, something like that. What they're looking for is probably so granular that like what did they even click on? Sort of almost like a Google Analytics type of situation. Thomas, is that what you're asking?
I think he just wants to know if there's a way.
I'm here.
Go ahead.
So I'd previously used something in the past that showed when an estimate was viewed. And it actually showed estimate received at this time, customer viewed it at 6 p.m., viewed it again at 6:30, viewed it again at 7. I didn't know if that'd be something that was possibly implemented down the road.
It is possible. And Dwayne, I do think that's something we should probably put on our priority list. I think that would be a great thing to be able to know. I know there's a proposal program not related to HVAC that I used in the past that allows me to see that. We use HubSpot to track all of our customer interactions on the marketing side. And we're able to see when they open an email, when they click on an email. We could add tracking data in there to track when they open the email, which is a little bit harder, but we definitely could track when they click on the link to view the proposal. And if we put a unique indicator on the end somehow, we might even be able to track every time they open it, like Thomas was saying. So that's something worth putting on the feature list, I think.
Okay. Ken, do you want, so Thomas, thank you for that. I'll write that down as a new feature to put on the list. And then so Thomas, thank you for that. And then Ken, so Ken, why don't you unmute yourself?
Yeah, I got it. So my question to you, Jay, I guess, is how is it best implemented as far as the live chat goes? I guess it's kind of a several part question. How important is it to have somebody technical on there? And then also, because most chats I see, you get on a chat and it's just more of a live redirection service, and it's very non-technical most times. And as a technical person, maybe I'm out of the ordinary, but I'd like to have more meat on the bone when I get done with those chats. And I'm wondering if that's a process of having somebody technical on the other end of that line, or if it just should be what it is and just a redirection toward a phone call or a site visit or something like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. What I would say about that is I think that it is, it actually may be better in some cases to have a live chat bot at the initial phase versus even a person, because when I always tell people, when you're trying to decide what needs to be done, always ask these 4 questions. 1, does it actually need to be done? And if not, delete it. Number 2, if it needs to be done, can it be done by a robot first? Number 3, can I delegate it to somebody else? Number 4, do I have to do it myself? And if so, when? And so the robot idea here is that there is a certain amount of information you need to collect before you can do anything. Like, what's their name? You don't even need that really. What's their email address, number 1? What's their name? What's their phone number in case you get disconnected? And the value of having a bot immediately take that information down is that people are, these are real stats, people are 5 times more likely to interact with your live chat than they are to fill out your contact form. So somebody's on your website and they're thinking, well, maybe I'll try and schedule with these folks. But then I click on the schedule button, there's like 50 fields I got to fill out. If your form's like that, it shouldn't be. But I have a little live chat that pops up and says, hey, how can we help you? And they click on it and says, hey, let me grab your email address in case we get disconnected. Put their email address in. Now I've acquired a lead right there. And then it can ask other qualifying questions. I don't know what your qualifying questions are necessarily, but there might be particular things. Hey, what are you having trouble with? Well, and then there could be selections. Well, my AC is not working. Bloop, okay. And then you might have another question for them beyond that. Like when was the last time you had it serviced? Or are you a current customer or a new customer? If you have a bot answering some of those questions, it can be really helpful. The tool that we use for that on our website is HubSpot. They have a free version that includes live chat. The paid version includes a lot more features, which Dwayne and I both use that program. Really great tool. So HubSpot.com, great tool for that. Allows you to integrate bot-driven chat that can then be handed off to a live person. I think that the next phase beyond this is more of a digital appointment type of setup, like we were talking about a little bit earlier. There's actually a tool that I'm working on launching right now that's going to allow that type of thing, where you can literally connect directly with a customer, do a video chat, get all the data you actually need, and then decide if you need to send a service tech out or not, or if they just need to replace their air filter because they haven't changed it in 4 years. So I don't think that the person on the live chat needs to be super technical. I do think you need to use a bot to ask specific questions so you have the basic information that you need to then hand them off to someone that's more technical. Because as soon as you can get that lead information, as long as you can follow up with them quickly, you can keep that person as a customer or acquire a new customer at a higher level that somebody else is that just fills out a form. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it really is. And I guess I've seen those trends before of people filling out the bot chat. I get a record of those, and there's a lot more of those than the online forms. So,
Yep. And you're going to get some spam in there. You're going to get some junk in there. And people are always like, what do I do with that? I'm like, delete it. Like, until you're getting thousands of them a day and it's completely unmanageable, just delete them, move on, get to the next person. But providing that as a service, we want to provide as many ways for the customer to get to us as quickly as possible. And that automated live chat, the bot-driven live chat, is a great way to do that because you get instantaneous response. The other thing that you do is you keep your costs way down because the HubSpot live chat bot, and there's other ones out there. There's one called Drift that's really popular. There's a bunch of others that are industry specific, but I don't think you need an actual human being to ask the first 5 or 6 questions. Those are going to be the same questions every single time. I don't need a person to type in, what is your email address? I need a robot to do that. And once those things get done, now I've acquired a lead and I can figure out what the next step is. The other thing I would say to anybody on the call right now that gets new leads in online, one thing that's exceptionally important for your conversion rate, whether you're going to convert a lead into a customer, is how quickly you're able to respond to them. And this sounds like a crazy number, but people who are able to respond to an online lead within 5 minutes are 95% more likely to close that deal. 95%. Because that person that fills out the online form might have gone to another website, and they're literally too lazy to call you or just don't want to, because that's how I am. And if you're not able to reply to my thing, but then somebody else does within 5 minutes, that's probably the person I'm going with. So the speed at which you're able to reply to those, and you have a system set up for that, that's why we use HubSpot, because it creates a workflow for that, is really, really powerful. So if anybody on the call has questions about that or wants a demo of HubSpot at some point or wants some help with that, I'm happy to help give you some insight. I'll put my email address in the chat, or you can just go to my website, initiate a live chat on there, and it won't go to me, but it'll go to Chris on my team, and you can kind of see how that workflow works as well, because there's a live chat right on our website. You can click that. It'll ask you a few questions. Those are handled by a bot. Then it'll get transferred over to Chris, who is our director of accounts. He'll reply if he's available. If he's not, it'll go to his email, and then he'll follow up with you. So that kind of gives you an idea of how that works.
Thanks,
And
Jay.
Ken, I can tell you that for me, it's that garbage in, garbage out sort of analogy. I think that one of the things that happens with contractors is they get sold on this idea of a program, and they really struggle with implementation. That even goes for our program too. Like they get real emotional about this nice new proposal, but unless they implement it correctly. When we went live with HubSpot, I really had to lean on Jay's people. He actually has a certified HubSpot. What is Megan called?
Our whole team are actually certified HubSpot experts now.
So what you really want to do is when you implement it to make it where it's where you're taking advantage of the whole thing. It isn't just something that's we're getting these in and we're not following up with them, because Jay's right. I mean, when we get someone that is interested in our program, my idea is we need to respond right away, because they're sitting there right at their computer. If they get up and walk away, they might have inquired with 4 or 5 different people, and if we didn't respond to them right away, then someone else would have done that. So Ken, does that
makes sense?
Does that help?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Okay, so Gus, you have a question about the solution assessment?
Yeah, I was since last week when I found that form after you talked about it, I printed it out and I've been staring at it, trying to tweak it for us a little bit.
Okay.
And I was wondering if you had pros and cons on sending maybe a little bit of a dumbed down version of this to the homeowner for like a little pre-qualification of like, how long have you lived in the home? What problems have you had? Allergies, stuff like that. Maybe as like a preliminary form. Is that something you think would be beneficial to do, or is that kind of like overkill? Because then once you go to the house, you can kind of reiterate on their questions with answers.
Well, I think it gets back to what Jay was saying. And Jay, so what I was talking to them about last week, are you still there? Is this form. So it's basically a form that we used. And actually, Jay, we've talked about digitizing this, and putting it in the pre-interview with the customer.
Yeah.
So that we could gather some information. Gus, I don't like the idea of just sending them a form to fill out. And because first of all, the whole point of the form is to develop a conversation. And if I'm sending them a form they have to fill out, they feel like, man, here's this guy and I've already got to do homework, you know?
Yeah, I would highly discourage that. We actually discourage that especially we made this mistake before. And it's not related to HVAC, but when we onboard a new marketing client, or a new client that's building a website with us, or a new client who's doing messaging with us, there's a lot of questions we need to have them answer. And what we used to do was send them it was a digital form, actually. We sent them an online form and asked them to fill it out. And getting people to fill that out was like pulling teeth. So now what I've told my team instead, and this works way better, we just call them. We say, hey, Bob, I got to just have a few questions for you. I want to walk through, make sure we're doing the right things for you on the marketing account. You know, do you have a few minutes today? And if not, let's schedule the time that you do. Then they just go through and they ask those questions, but we fill out those questions as they answer them, versus them filling it out. I would almost always say the customer should not be the one filling out a form whenever possible, because ultimately the customers want to do as little as possible. And if you ask me to fill out a bunch of stuff as a customer, I'm like, I'm not doing that. The other guy just came in and told me what I needed. And he asked me a few questions to help me get to where I needed to go. But I think it's more of a guide than it is a tool that the customer needs to fill out. I totally agree with that, Dwayne.
Okay.
So we want to, that is on the list of things. And actually, I think we've already, if I look in the staging site, there's a place for us to add questions for the customer. We just haven't come up with the questions yet and this is the form that we want to use to be able to do that.
I love this form, Dwayne, by the way.
I'm sorry?
I love this form. I wish I would have found this sooner. I really want to implement this.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a way for you to just create a conversation with the customer, and eventually you'll get so good at it that you won't need the form, right? You'll just be asking these questions, and there really are just, you know, the terminology of how to boil a frog, right? You can't take a frog and throw him into hot water that's boiling, he'll jump right out. But if you put him in cold water and turn him up, eventually you'll boil him. He won't get used to the temperature changing, and then you basically cook him. So that's kind of not really what we're doing with the customer, but we want them to be comfortable with us and this process that we're going through. And, you know, just a little clipboard with this little form, and he even has on the back of it, you know, the items that we need for the guys to be able to see. And quite frankly, now with the ability for you to add documents into the form, you could actually take a picture of this and send it back in with the proposal itself.
And just from from the customer's perspective, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier and why I like some of the questions that are on this assessment. I haven't looked at it in a while, but I remember when you created this. You know, I was saying earlier when we were talking about marketing messaging, one of the biggest mistakes people make is they get too technical. So when you start talking about MERV ratings or SEER ratings or whatever the heck else you want that's insider language, the only thing I know at that point is I want whatever is the cheapest option. Until you go, hey, tell me a little bit about the X, Y, or Z. Is that important to you? Oh, well, yeah, that's really important. We really care about, indoor air quality. That's really high on our list. Well, tell me about this. You start asking them questions that are assessing what they actually want. And then at that point, my mind as the customer has been put into a place that is reminding me, number one, of what is actually important to me and what I care about. So then when you present my options and you're going, all right, we got a budget, a good, better, and a best. Remember earlier when we were talking about how important indoor air quality is to you? Let me tell you about this better model and what it does that differentiates itself from the cheaper option. And look, I know we all want the cheaper option, but I know indoor air quality is really important to you. We talked about that, especially with your son that has asthma. And so let me tell you why this unit's better. Now, on the surface, that conversation style can sound and feel very manipulative. But what I always tell people is, if I'm selling them something that actually is in their best interest, because I don't believe in selling people things that they don't need. I believe in selling them things they actually are going to be better for their life. A unit that's going to last longer. It's going to provide better air quality. Unit that's going to run quieter. Whatever are the things that are really important to them. If I know what those desires are and I'm able to help them move towards that, then it's almost my moral responsibility to sell them into that. So there's a difference in persuading somebody to buy something, which is what we're doing with an assessment like this. Persuading someone to buy something because it is in their best interest, and manipulating someone into buying something just because we want to sell more stuff. And I believe that the best way to build a business over time is to convince people to buy things that are actually in their best interest. So that, number one, they'll buy more from us in the future. They'll trust us and they'll tell their friends about us so that they can grow more. That's marketing just as much as a good website is. And that's where like marketing and sales kind of commingle. But understanding that assessment, understanding those needs of the customer, getting those lists down, that stuff's enormous. Most people are doing this horribly wrong, and they're just sending people into homes who, you know, they're overly technical. They're talking about terms over the customer's heads, and they could care less. But if you can talk to the customer about what they actually need, want, and desire, and then you can position the solution, which is that better model potentially for them, all of a sudden my likelihood of buying that just exponentially increased. So another monologue for the day.
Okay, so we got about 4 minutes left. Probably got time for one more question, comment, feedback. Are you guys enjoying these calls?
Love it.
Good. Excellent. Any other questions?
Last call. I'm not going to be here next week, so you got to get your questions in for me now. Otherwise, you just got Dwayne next week. So Richard said he's enjoying the call. Thanks, Richard.
How's Savannah or Southeast Georgia? He's from up in the Georgia area. Okay, guys. Well, I appreciate it. Northwest Georgia. I'm sorry. I appreciate it. Thank you, Jay, for joining the call with us. We're tomorrow actually have a still to be determined because the guy that I get was having to speak actually bailed on me. So I will have something to talk about tomorrow, and I promise you it'll be interesting. Tess is asking where she gets the form. The form is actually on the main website under the admin, where you go to welcome and then your name, and then it says library, and then on that library it says solutions assessment. And so go to the solutions assessment, and you can download it there. It's actually a PDF. You can take that PDF, it's 4 pages, print it into a 11 by 17. It will fold in half, so like 2 pages, and then the front page just says solutions assessment, and then the back 2 pages, it'll fold just like that. So take it to your nearest FedEx Kinko's or FedEx office. You can have it printed there. Feel free to put your name on it. I wrote it. You're welcome to use it. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. 2 minutes to 2.
Thanks, y'all. Have a great day.
Appreciate
It was good to see you.
Thanks,
Take
Jay.
care.
Thanks, guys.